Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the von Zuckerhoff. This, of course, is a Schlieffen, one of the most popular ships in the game. According to Wargaming, in the last year, 2025, Schlieffen, at least on the NA and EU servers, was the most played battleship. And that makes sense. This ship is absolutely incredible in alternate game modes in particular. Anything PvE, it's hard to make work in random battles. That said, you can still have an excellent time with a Schlieffen. The secondaries here are really fun. They basically match your concealment range to your secondary range, opening up a lot of opportunities for you to push up without firing and get into better positions to make use of your secondaries. Using islands to isolate fights, Schlieffen doesn't have a lot of HP or armor to really take on the entire enemy team, so we need to be isolating those engagements. And the toolkit here is excellent for that, having a hydro alongside fast damage controls and torpedoes. I'm sure you already knew that given the popularity of this ship, but it's worth remembering what makes this ship so special. Its ability to deal with multiple targets at once, deal with enemy destroyers coming into your flank alongside having the option of using your main guns on the other side of your ship to go after the radar cruisers, anything like that. We, of course, just have to manage that HP pool. I find Schlieffen very fun when I get these opportunities to push up. Some of the carrier games, some of the higher tier games make it very difficult to push in, and then Schlieffen is a little bit less fun. For those of you that play mostly random battles, maybe von Zuckerhoff is not the best pick for you. But I do think for most people, Schlieffen or von Zuckerhoff here is going to be their primary target. Laria is a great option if you don't have a lot of steel, of course, too. But make sure you think about what you play the most. Just because you get a ship doesn't mean you're going to play it. There's a lot of options in this game, of course. And given that Schlieffen is one of the most played ships, understandably, especially given those alt game modes, I think this is an excellent opportunity to get yourself a special version of a Schlieffen. This, of course, lets us move Lutjens over completely for free. That's the big downside of regular Schlieffen. Not that it can't do all this, they're functionally identical. Outside of the camo and of course the horn too, we can turn these off, okay, before we get into that too much. It's not the most historically accurate camo. I'll show you how to turn it off if you're interested in port once we get there. But having this premium or special ship option, tier 10s, they're special ships. The only difference between a special ship and a premium is that it doesn't get improved credit income. The servicing cost at the end of a battle is a little bit less on special ships compared to something like a tech tree, so there's an improvement there. The main benefit, though, is getting Lutjens over completely for free. Lutjens is a very good special commander for basically all of the German ships. He gives you massive bonuses on cruisers for higher DPM, secondaries when we get 100 hits, as we did here in less than 5 minutes, boost your secondary DPM. Very nice commander to have on a lot of your ships. Schlieffen really wants this. Given the high DPM already, you're getting a lot of hits very quickly with these secondaries, and moving him back and forth between, say, your Hindenburg, your Schlieffen. Maybe you also wanted to play some Bismarck down at tier 8, something like that. It got very expensive. This is one of the worst parts about the PC game, World of Warships, versus playing something like the console game, World of Warships Legends. They allow you to move the commanders around completely for free, alongside retraining them to get different commander skills. It's completely for free in that game. This allows us to have some of that benefit with our Schlieffen now, and I really like that. Schlieffen alongside Petro, I think, are the two best examples in this 2026 Lunar New Year. I personally have more fun with Schlieffen. It's harder to make work, of course. Petro is just all around an excellent radar cruiser, very hard-hitting main guns there, and very tanky too. But Schlieffen, I like brawling. I like playing up close battleship play. I think that is really, really fun. Where Petro feels good in those situations too, but it's not quite as fun as Schlieffen is for me, at least once I get it working. Perhaps the highs are a little higher with Schlieffen. Petro is just a little bit more consistent, I think, is how I would put it here. You'll find that the von Zuckerhoff is on the order side of this Lunar New Year event, this Nian's Paradox event. And in the Ptrpvlsk side of it as well, this is going to be for 33,000 tokens. We've looked at this event before. I'll link in the description below where you can find my initial coverage. the update video. I went more in depth there on this whole event, but safe to say that the combat missions, being able to play them all at once, you don't have to do them each individually one after the other, is really nice. And I didn't see too many combat missions that were that difficult, and if they were, there was only a couple of them. You should be able to move on from week to week relatively easily. I did some calculations in that initial video based on you getting around to the end of week 5 out of these 7. I think that is quite reasonable. In fact, looking back on it, the more I've checked it out, I think that is way on the conservative side. You should be able to get a lot further than that, even if you're playing just an hour or two every other day, something like that. I don't think this is a particularly difficult event to grind out. But even if it is, that 25,000 or so tokens is pretty reasonable to get to. With that, you can just top up to this total of 33,000 to get the Schlieffen here for 141,000 coal. Now, coal, of course, can be used in a lot of different ways right now. Hasn't been in the past, but we're getting multiple events in a row where coal is the primary or secondary resource type. That, of course, being the Surcouf salvage. I think that a lot of these ships are a lot better, even though these are clones, okay? Getting a clone Schlieffen, getting a clone Laria, getting a clone Petro, these kinds of things. I think they're just better than going for something like the Nari or the Zarya S in the Surcouf salvage. I personally would rather play these clones than a new ship like Zarya S or Nari, where I just don't think they're really that good. And they're very, very expensive for coal. As mentioned already in the coverage of that event, I just think Kelowna is the one worth getting there. Otherwise, probably save your coal for this event. Schlieffen, though, probably going to go down here, trying to push and gain an advantage. We're probably going to lose this one. I wanted to gain an advantage before the Valparaiso got around the corner, but I think we're going to go down. We are running IFHE, though, on these secondaries. Highly recommend that, as there's a lot of 32 millimeters of armor at higher tier, even still. And we get absurd secondary damage out of it. Too bad we go down. Will we get another torp hit? Yes, sir. I got extremely lucky on those random torps on that poor Elbing earlier. Unfortunately, this one will end in that loss, but a lot of the best games happen to be losses, at least as far as I've found. And a very even split between our damage. Fires, torps, secondary, raw, output, nearly 100k there, by the way, and main guns. That, I think, is the special sauce of something like the Schlieffen. It doesn't rely on one ammo type. If you want to torp out enemy ships, you can. The secondaries applying some constant pressure in your detection range, really nice. And the main guns are surprisingly okay here. Yeah, the shells aren't amazing, but we do actually get battle cruiser dispersion here. Yeah, it's 1.7 Sigma, so not the most consistent, but that's a lot better than something like battleship dispersion like we would see on a GK, for example. We don't get the volume of fire. There are big differences there. I think this fast-acting damage control as well is a key benefit of playing something like Schlieffen. The armor isn't the best on the bow and stern, but your upper belt is relatively well protected here too. And we can stay quite angled to fire all of our main guns. So eating fires could be a big issue. It is for a lot of battleships that try to push in, eating torpedoes, eating submarine pings. Damage controls are under a ton of pressure these days. There's just so much demand for your damage control that having this fast acting one is a massive benefit. Schlieffen came out a long time ago, and yet this fast acting damage control seems to just keep getting better. And yeah, we still eat some damage there, unfortunately, but not as much as we maybe would have. And these torpedoes, yeah, they're slow, but 13.5 kilometers of range. It's going to surprise a lot of people. I mean, obviously that Elbing last game, but even here with Bourgogne, I kind of torped like he might be accelerating something like that, and yet he reversed all the way around, and those torps were slow enough they still caught him. Under a lot of pressure there early, but Schlieffen manages to deal with it. It's bursty pressure that I think Schlieffen deals with the best. It is not sustained pressure, okay? It's not something like a Sibir or a Kremlin, where it has this monster HP pool as well as armor that allows it to tank forever. This ship can deal with some burst damage and then heal up, but you just don't want to sit in front of an entire enemy team, like I'm about to in this battle. And I think maybe that's why Schlieffen feels pretty hard to play in random battles these days, trying to get the most out of this toolkit, the torps, the secondaries, getting into these brawls. It's not easy to do. Tier 10 high tier is very, very passive these days. And yes, certain maps will have islands that you can push up to. A lot of the times, you're still going to be spotted on those islands, and the enemy team will be able to arc over some of these islands, still being able to farm you out. And that's where Schlieffen, again, it just doesn't do well with that sustained pressure. We need to be breaking line of sight or forcing some 1v1s, that kind of thing. Here, though, yeah, I've overpushed. I'm trying to make some brawls work, and we're going to do our best in this one. But notice how our team has won the C flank rather handily. Yeah, we're let's get stuck in here. This might not end so well for us. But that is another Jean Bart. We're getting fortunate here too to see the 32 mil armored battleships walk within our secondary range. And we're going to do an absurd amount of damage with the secondaries here. Of course, you can use this ship in the alternate game modes, anything PvE. It's going to be so much more fun because you just constantly are within secondary range. You're easily able to get there. That's what the PvE modes generally are designed for. Closer range, action-packed battles against the computer, not against other players. It makes sense why, you know, players wouldn't just walk into the secondary range of Schlieffen willingly, because it is still a lot of DPM. Yeah, it released years ago, but it still is over 50,000, 56,000 hitting DPM at 10 kilometers here. Second best at tier 10 behind Sibir's 72k. Yeah, that one's power crept a little bit. However, that Sibir does not pen 32 millimeters of armor, and that's what we're getting a huge advantage here against the Jean Bart here. Ohio's a little worse. Libertad as well, around 43 to 44,000 hitting DPM. Yeah, it actually has more DPM than something like Libertad. But Libertad's got better armor, okay? I'm not going to sit here and make you think that Schlieffen is the best brawling battleship in the game still. It isn't, okay? Libertad is going to do a lot better. Valparaiso at tier 9 is just going to survive for so much longer to get a lot of value out of its secondaries and lighting fires there. Something like Sibir getting all of its healing up front is a big advantage. Even Ohio, with the fast cooldown heals and better armor, can survive a lot longer in some of these brawling situations. And maybe that would be nice to have on something like Schlieffen. Let's say we wanted to power creep things up a little bit more, because that's what this would do. But what if we buffed Schlieffen in 2026? They're not going to do this because they already said Schlieffen's one of the most played ships in 2025. They often go by play rate for buffing things, not on absolute power levels, by the way. If they're played a lot, likely they don't need a buff. If a ship isn't played very much, then they'll think about buffing it. At least that's the way it seems to go. But hypothetically, what could we change? What if you gave it a 40-second heal cooldown? You get 40-second DCP cooldown, 40-second heal cooldown. That could be kind of interesting. I noticed a lot of the time, well, my positioning, I over-pushed. I didn't stop at island checkpoints, and then I would die with heals remaining. I think that would be an interesting way to compensate for some of my bad decisions. But allow you to push up a little more easily, perhaps. It already has great concealment. It already has decent armor when angled. Yeah, the HP pool is a little bit lower, but allowing us to heal back a little bit more quickly, I think could be interesting. I doubt Wargaming does that. Don't get your hopes up. That is just pure hypothetical. What isn't, though, is the buff to module damage. Look at how often our torpedoes are knocked out here. Currently, it's that gray timer at the bottom center of our screen. That normally would have been a permanently destroyed torpedo, and yet we can get it back relatively quickly. It's not like our torps are permanently gone once a few HE shells hit them. Same with our secondaries. These are very exposed secondaries. They're not very well protected at all. Schlieffen often ended, or at least got into the mid-game of certain battles, and it just would lose all of its torps and all of its secondaries, and it would be very ineffective. A massive buff that they added last year was to change module damage to your secondaries, to your torpedoes, so they wouldn't be permanently destroyed. I think that's really powerful. The main guns also have that, by the way, but the main guns don't get knocked out nearly as often. Yes, that is nearly 100k alpha damage again from these secondaries, and that poor Jean Bart ate nearly 60k just from those secondaries. And I'll hit you with the horn as we're getting back into port here. It's an absurd camo. This is an absurd camo, okay? If you're at all interested in historical accuracy or anything like that in the game, you just don't like this camo, totally fair, okay? Here's all you gotta do. You just go to the little gears section here in the bottom right, click this, go to special ships, and then decorative. It turns off, it becomes a regular Schlieffen. The name even changes, by the way. So everything to you, as far as it looks, is just a regular Schlieffen, except for one thing, and that's this little gold wreath around the white battleship icon, signifying it is a special ship. It is not a full premium, because full premiums have the gold icon as well, as you can see here with Marco Polo, but a special ship. Meaning that Lutjens, yes, we can just send them to the reserve and bring them back. We can change our commanders as much as we want to. If I wanted to bring over my Z52 guy, I can. It is amazing. Where is he? There he is. Let's bring him back. It's so nice to be able to move Lutjens over for free. This is the main benefit here, and a very powerful benefit that you can grind out completely for free. Getting to 33,000 of these tokens, I think, is a lot easier than, say, going for the Laria at 42,000 total tokens. But then Schlieffen isn't quite as rare to get as a Laria. If you just want this gameplay experience and you don't really care about moving commanders as much, because it's not that big of it's a big benefit. It's 15% DPM on your secondary. It's a big benefit, but also it doesn't change the playstyle that much. It just makes it a little bit more fun. It's maybe not worth that to you. It's up to you to decide that, of course. For me, if I wasn't having all of these ships here, it's a big bonus for CCs, by the way. If I wasn't having all of these ships here, this is likely the one I would go for, to be honest with you, because I already have Laria. I find it a little too trolly for me. Schlieffen, though, moving Lutjens around is a really, really nice benefit. Petro also has that benefit, being with the Kuznetsov commander. Very, very powerful for a lot of that Soviet line. Really interesting options there. It is totally up to you. I also kind of like this silly camo. Maybe I'm just a little mature, but this to me is very funny. The Tempesta camo as well is really cool. But these are still just copy paste. If you're interested at all in this playstyle and you just don't have the time to grind it out right now, maybe you're seeing this later, just get yourself a Schlieffen completely for free in the tech tree. Here's the build that I was running on Lutjens with the Schlieffen here. We're running into Demo Expert these days rather than taking Preventive Maintenance, because again, we get back our modules. It's not like they're gone forever. Very, very nice. And that actually is a big buff to our fire chance here. Adding 1% is a big deal when IFHE knocks our fire chance down to 2.5%, okay? It's a much bigger deal. It's additive, and that is more valuable at these very small percentages. Adding 1% is much better than multiplying by 1%. So in that case, it's a pretty good upgrade here. Of course, take IFHE though, because that allows these 105s, which is the primary DPM of these secondaries, I would say, to full pen 32 millimeters of armor, which is the main armor threshold at tier 10. Obviously go secondaries, as well as Adrenaline Rush. That is too good to give up. And I went for Emergency Repair Expert over something like Fire Prevention. The fast damage controls kind of allow for that, although I wasn't always getting to those last heals, so maybe I could have given this up in favor of something like Fire Prevention, or maybe go for Close Quarters Combat or Furious to make it even more fun. Perhaps in some of those alternative game modes, that would be the way to go. Otherwise, full secondary, yes. Even here, go full secondary. It's more fun that way. This is a secondary battleship. You're not gonna get much out of the main guns, even if you build for them, in my opinion. I think that Sigma is just a little prohibitive of that. Hydro being a 5.5 kilometer hydro, not a full 6 kilometer hydro, is a little disappointing, but it's still very, very good and extremely valuable for a pushing in ship. Here is the armor profile as well. Upper bow is overmatchable, but there's a large section here that isn't. So for the most part, you stay angled, you're not taking too much damage. The superstructure is smaller than GK, I will say that, but it's not the smallest thing in the world. It can still take damage. There's some weird shot traps with some of these casemate secondaries here too. Kited out, you're going to notice that the armor looks a little bit better here. And a 50 mil deck armor, 150 upper belt, that kind of thing. Relatively well armored, I would say. Low HP pool is why it may not feel as well armored to you. It also does have a slightly above water citadel here, so you'll have to watch that if you do end up giving broadside. Try to keep it angled. So a very cool option from Wargaming. I do like this event a lot, even though my expectations, again, I'll leave a link down below towards that update video where I covered this event initially and went over all of it in detail. I was expecting a little bit more out of it, but I still think this is a really good event, and an option to get yourself the Schlieffen here, where you can swap the special commander Lutjens over for free, is a great reason to get yourself the premium version of Schlieffen here. Plus, I kind of think this camo is hilarious. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.